My hubby actually does it. He is able to perform every voice. Andrew Parker BS has finally spoken out after decades of silence at the age of 85, and what he has disclosed is simply astounding. The reality of his well-publicized divorce from Queen Camilla has been hidden for years under royal headlines, hushed rumors, and cautiously worded remarks. However, the man who was once at the center of the most talked about love triangle in Britain is finally speaking up. What made him leave Camilla? How did their royal romance end? The response can take you by surprise and alter your entire worldview. A concealed marriage. The future of every marriage is defined by certain occasions, times when love either grows stronger or starts to wane. Those times were discreet for Andrew Parker BS, encapsulated in glances, silences, and tiny changes in his wife's heart. He and Camilla seemed like the ideal couple on the surface, refined, aristocratic, and at ease among the upper echelons of society. However, something invisible had taken root behind that flawless exterior. There was always something, or rather someone, lurking in the background. Prince Charles was that someone. It was said that Camilla's romance with Charles ended before she wed Andrew, but the reality was much more nuanced. The emotional bond between them never really diminished, even though their physical relationship may have ended, at least temporarily. Charles had been more than a fleeting romantic interest. He had made a mark on Camilla's spirit. Despite his tendency to keep his feelings to himself, Andrew started to experience them in the most subtle yet agonizing ways. He could see it in the way her face would shift whenever Charles's name was spoken. In the letters, he felt it. She slipped away with care. Camilla occasionally came across as aloof in the whispered phone conversations that always seemed to take place behind closed doors, even during social gatherings and family feasts, as though her affection was elsewhere. As his wife's heart gradually shifted in a different direction, Andrew started to feel like a visitor in his marriage, playing the part of the attractive spouse. This has nothing to do with jealousy, not in the typical sense. Throughout his life, Andrew had been surrounded by social discretion, aristocratic affairs, and flirtations. However, the strength of Camilla's relationship with Charles was what set this apart. It was more than just sentimental. It was persistent and almost divine. Charles was always there regardless of the years that went by or the stage of life they were in. Even though he was not physically present in the room, his shadow was always there. Andrew once told a close friend that he frequently felt like a stand-in, someone who was there not because he was Camilla's true love, but rather because he made sense, fit the calendar, and gave things structure. But in her heart and mind, he wasn't the first person she looked to for emotional support. He possessed the position, duties, and public persona of a spouse, but he lacked the closeness that gave that position significance. That emotional absence eventually became too much to bear. One day at a time, it eroded the foundation of their marriage. Andrew witnessed a bond eroding behind closed doors, while the world witnessed a sophisticated marriage, having children and attending royal events. He was not consumed by fury. It was sorrow and an increasing awareness that his wife's heart had never truly belonged to him in the first place, and that the real grief was more than any scandal or adultery. Andrew felt love slipping through his fingers in silence, while the rest of the world witnessed a loving husband. We have to go back to the starting point in order to comprehend how it all came to be, the hidden fissures and the perfect beginning. This section of the narrative transports us to the early years of Andrew Parker BS and Camilla Shand, when everything appeared to be ideal. They appeared to onlookers to be the perfect golden pair, straight out of a fairy tale. Both were from well-established, well-respected aristocratic families in British high society. They were the envy of their contemporaries because of their easy grace, charm, and elegance. With his tough appearance and polo prowess, Andrew was seen as the ideal gentleman, strong, self-assured, and subtly endearing. In the affluent social circles to which they both belonged, Camilla was equally respected for her brilliant smile and inherent composure. They appeared to represent the ideal fusion of youth, tradition, and status. Their world consisted of expensive polo tournaments played in the brilliant sun, where Andrew's prowess on the pitch was praised. They spent their evenings mixing with the elite of London society, including diplomats and members of the royal family, at formal banquets. It was a life of glistening crystal glasses, hushed discussions behind lace curtains, and laughter resonating through opulent ballrooms. Anyone observing would have thought that Andrew and Camilla's relationship was a brilliant illustration of love and cooperation. The couple who had it all was them: beauty, prestige, and a bright future ahead. Together their names were uttered with awe. Their tale was one of those uncommon love stories that appeared intended to last a lifetime. However, fissures were already starting to appear behind this glistening exterior. Something more intricate was taking place behind the social graces and well-groomed smile. There was a subliminal tension that nobody wanted to talk about. At first, those fissures were not noticeable. They resembled little shadows moving slowly through a brightly lit room. If you looked attentively, it was easy to miss, but impossible to ignore. There were times of uncertainty and detachment beneath the glitz and laughter, times when their mutual warmth cooled. Those who knew them well might detect the decline in the frequency of their shared smile. Even though no one was prepared to call it that, an emotional triangle was beginning to form. This was the start of a tale that was much more complicated than the fairy tale it seemed to be. Loyalty, ambition, and desire, and hearts torn between duty and desire, all played a part in this tale of love. A darker reality was concealed beneath the glitzy exterior of Andrew and Camilla's early years, a reality that will eventually shatter their idyllic environment and permanently alter their lives. This section challenges us to see past the glitzy pictures and realize that even the most perfect beginnings can conceal the seeds of treachery, heartache, and a fate from which none of them could ever escape. It seemed like a dream when Andrew and Camilla first fell in love. Their fairy tale barely lasted long enough to conceal the turmoil that was subtly developing behind its idyllic exterior. Let's now examine how Camilla gradually moved past Andrew Parker's bullshit, the unspoken goal. At this point in Andrew Parker Bia's story, the subtle uneasiness of a failed marriage transforms into something much more sinister. Up until now, it had appeared that his relationship with Camilla had broken down due to feelings such as a developing emotional distance, a lack of intimacy, or a residual love for Prince Charles. However, Andrew noticed something far more profound and intentional at work as he started to listen more intently. Playful, funny, and openly skeptical of the royal world, the lady he had known was gradually changing. When Camilla was younger, she had always ridiculed the rituals and stiffness of royal life. She never seemed to want to be in the spotlight, rolled her eyes at customs, and scoffed about the rules. She was refreshing, even charming, because of this. But as time went on, Andrew noticed a change in her. Camilla had stopped making fun of the royals. She wasn't just examining it for fun, she was watching, picking things up, and adjusting. Andrew remembers discovering newspaper clippings, handwritten notes about royal events, and lists of royal circle members who might be helpful in the future. She seems to have gone from being a passive viewer of the royal world to studying it and then becoming a motivated participant in it. He saw her change not just physically but also emotionally and cognitively. The woman who used to mock formal dinners started arranging her attire and talking about potential guests. She began forming discreet friendships with politicians, former assistants, press advisors, and others with ties to the palace. She started showing up to parties not only as a guest, but also as someone who knew how to get the attention she wanted. Andrew didn't understand what was going on at first. He reasoned that it might be a phase or a response to Charles's increasing influence in their life once more, but gradually, he realized the reality. Camilla wasn't merely showing interest in Charles on an emotional level. Together they were creating a future, one that involved the crown, the people, and the royal court. And that picture no longer included Andrew. He realized that he wasn't where she was headed. He served as a springboard in a much larger narrative that Camilla was crafting for herself. Their home, their lives, and even their kids were becoming incidental details. She still loved Charles, but it wasn't the only thing. It was that she was discreetly getting ready to walk with him, not as a covert lover, but as someone who the monarchy itself might accept, even embrace. It became impossible for Andrew to ignore the truth. He was no longer Camilla's real-life companion. However, was this agonizing alteration only influenced by subtle adjustments and increasing emotional detachment? Or did Camilla ultimately utter the words that crushed his final dreams? Let's investigate. The instant that broke everything. This is a heart-stopping moment in Andrew Parker's BS narrative. It's where his experience, actual emotional impact finally sinks in. He was stung by more than simply betrayal. Camilla's long-term relationship with Prince Charles wasn't the only issue. It was far more than that. At this point, everything he believed to be true about his marriage fell apart. Andrew claimed that neither the rumors in royal circles nor the headlines revealed the most agonizing truth. In a moment of unadulterated honesty that left him speechless, Camilla said it direct. He wasn't intended to be her forever, she told him icily, boldly, and without regret, that her ultimate aim was not their marriage, their house, their kids, and the years they shared. He merely served as a link between the life she had and the life she desired, a chapter in her story. His heart wasn't the only thing broken by that realization. It caused him to doubt everything. Had the foundation of their relationship been a lie? Was he just a stand-in? Someone who was meant to be replaced when the crown came calling, but who at the time was a good fit for the position? Camilla and Charles shared an emotional connection that Andrew had long felt went beyond friendship. They had an indisputable, strong, and even magnetic bond. However, he never thought that his whole marriage might have been a part of a long-term covert plan. He was horrified to learn that Camilla had always viewed Charles as her ultimate aim, and that Andrew was only a means to that end. He started to relive their lives together, vows at a wedding, family vacations, and intimate discussions with fresh perspective. He recalled Camilla's constant dissatisfaction with their position in the world. In public, she ignored royal protocol, but in private, she carefully examined it. She performed her duties as a wife and mother, but she also kept a part of herself hidden, as though she was waiting for someone or something. The symptoms, in retrospect, had been there all along. However, even the most perceptive individual can become blinded by love, loyalty, and optimism. Andrew had trusted their tale. He had had faith in her. More upsetting than any affair was hearing her confess, without regret, that he was never the one. It was more than a simple denial of love. All of their shared history was rejected. He wasn't the only man she had left for. She had gotten closer to the throne by using their life together as a cover, and Andrew lost more than just his wife in that crucial time. The narrative he had been telling himself for decades was lost. That they were two individuals navigating the world together, a collaboration, and a team. Rather, long before she ever stated it aloud, he understood that he had been traveling alone on a course she had outgrown. Losing his wife wasn't the only thing that broke Andrew's heart. Losing the life, the memories, and the narrative they had created together was the main concern. However, their children were in the midst of that emotional devastation. What happened to them? How did they handle the silent dissolution of their family? Let's investigate. Between two different realities, Queen Camilla frequently makes headlines and is at the center of royal news. However, Tom Parker, B.S., and Laura Lopes, the two children from her first marriage to Andrew Parker, B.S., have had quietly remarkable lives of their own. They occasionally enter the royal spotlight, but for the most part, they stay grounded and lead relatable, everyday lives away from the spotlight. Both Tom and Laura have forged their own distinct trajectories, characterized by inventiveness, composed confidence, and modest, yet significant ties to the monarchy, despite growing up surrounded by nobility and royal connections. The eldest brother, Tom, was born on December 8. King Charles, his godfather, is also his stepfather, making his family's story unique in British history. His background takes on a unique twist because of this uncommon familial tie. However, Tom has never depended on his royal status. He has instead established himself in the very different industry of food. Tom is a well-known cookbook author, critic, and culinary writer. His restaurant evaluations are renowned for being frank and considerate, and he has established himself as a familiar voice in magazines like Esquire UK and The Mail on Sunday. Over the years, he has also served as a judge and guest expert on a number of food TV shows, adding not just his expertise, but also a dash of aristocratic flair to the kitchen. Tom most recently released Food and the Crown Royal Recipes, From Queen Victoria to King Charles, a book that masterfully blends his royal connections with his love of food. He expressed his gratitude to the King and Queen, my mother, and the King at the book's launch, stating that their encouragement and wisdom were crucial to making the initiative a reality. In his private life, Tom wed Sarah Bess, a fashion editor, Lola, born in 2007, and Freddie, born in 2010. Are their two children together? Tom is still a loving father, even though he and Sarah eventually split up. Notably, Freddie participated in royal history by acting as a page of honor at the coronation of his grandmother, Camilla, born on January 1, 1978. Laura Lopes has opted for a more subdued lifestyle. After attending Oxford Brookes University and a Catholic boarding school, she entered the art industry as the manager of London Space Gallery, and eventually co-founded 11, a fine art gallery in the posh Belgravia district. She married Harry Lopes, a former model, who became an accountant, and is currently the CEO of Eden Renewables. Gus and Louis, twins, and Eliza, are the couple's 3 children. They all participated in the coronation, with their cousin Freddie, and Gus and Louis acting as pages. Tom and Laura have paved their own ways, establishing jobs, starting families, and leaving personal legacies, while being associated with monarchy. Let's now explore Andrew's silent exit from a life that was never truly his. The silent way out. Following the emotional devastation of his marriage to Camilla, Andrew Parker, B.S., had to make a decision that might have had a profound impact on the royal family, as well as on himself. He was justified in his outburst. He had lost his wife to the future monarch, Prince Charles. The betrayal was extremely humiliating, public, and personal. Any other man may have used his suffering to settle scores by writing a book, speaking to the media, or becoming a regular presence in the headline. However, Andrew made a decision that few people in his situation would have been able to carry out. Silence was his choice. He didn't make sour remarks or host press conferences. He didn't appear on talk shows or release private correspondence. Rather, he subtly vanished from the royal drama that was taking place all around him. Camilla, meanwhile, began to take center stage. After serving as Charles's friend, wife, and queen, Andrew vanished from sight, carrying with him all the truth, suffering, and secrets he could have used as a weapon. This section of his biography highlights the force and rarity of dignity. Andrew did not just leave the marriage,
He turned down the chance to gain notoriety in the media. He was privy to one of the most contentious royal affairs in contemporary history. He never did, however, utilize it for vengeance or celebrity. He realized that nothing he said could be heard more clearly than anything he said. The people started to forget his part in the story. As the years went by, Camilla was gradually reinterpreted as a key player in Charles's destiny, rather than as the other lady in the royal story. Andrew, meanwhile, started to resemble a ghost. Documentaries didn't mention him. Articles regarding the royal romance hardly ever mentioned him by name. He appeared to have been completely absent from the scene, and that rubber might have caused as much pain as the divorce itself. Andrew had been Camilla's companion for decades, the father of her children, and the guy who supported her during significant family events and royal entanglements. But people who opt for quiet exits are rarely fortunate in history. He started working behind the scenes and was a silent observer of a love triangle that influenced the monarchy, but was never allowed to have a say in how it was told. Andrew, however, never faltered. He continued to uphold a personal code of integrity, self-control, and dignity. By doing this, he maintained his honor, even as others changed the story. Despite being forced out of the spotlight, he refused to allow the world to pull him into the ensuing pandemonium. Additionally, Andrew Parker Bia's choice to go in silence may be the most potent statement of all in a time when every slight is turned into a controversy. A legacy more powerful than any protest was created by Andrew's quiet dignity in the face of treachery, was his silent retreat. Let's now discover how Andrew's bravery altered our perception of the world outside the royal gates. All of our preconceived notions about the notorious royal love triangle are completely upended in this last and most impactful section of Andrew Parker Bia's tale. For many years, the story of Prince Charles, Camilla, and Andrew was presented as a straightforward tale of heartbreak and forbidden love gone bad. However, Andrew's long-held discoveries cast the events in a far more nuanced and eerie light. It was more than just love. It has to do with something far more significant: ambition, control, power, and the agonizing price of being a part of a story that wasn't yours in the first place. We begin to see the deeper levels that were concealed beneath the surface through Andrew's perspective. His account compels us to reconsider not only what transpired, but also why it occurred and who was impacted. Instead than speaking as a resentful ex-husband, he portrays a man who silently observed his identity and life being altered by circumstances outside of his control. After all, this was more than just a tale of two lovers and one abandoned. It told the story of Camilla, a woman who discovered how to survive in a world of influence, appearance, and power, a lady who changed who she was in order to live in the realm of monarchy. Additionally, it was about a man named Andrew, who gradually vanished from the narrative after losing his wife. He didn't have a loud or dramatic pain, not just in a relationship, but throughout history as a whole. It was the gradual, silent loss of individuality and being replaced. Andrew saw Camilla and Charles's narrative play out for years in official royal documents, films, and magazine covers. His position was eliminated or diminished to a footnote, but now that these long-hidden truths have been revealed, he has taken it back. The goal is to fill in the gaps, not to change history. Andrew offers more than just his own thought. It serves as a gift to history and a reminder that stories, particularly the glitzy, refined ones, from palaces, frequently omit the most intimate details: the suffering, the sacrifice, and the quiet. His voice emanates from the silent shadows cast by the press box and the throne room, not from either location, and occasionally, the true story can be found there. The folks who wait, suffer, and recover behind the curtain are not in the spotlight. Even though Andrew Parker's nonsense was removed from the public version of the royal fairy tale. His parting remarks reveal a more profound reality. Every crown has a price. Every happily ever after has a person at its core who paid for it with their love, their silence, and occasionally, even their sense of self. What are your thoughts on Andrew disclosing the reasons behind his divorce with Camilla? Please share your ideas in the comments section below. Remember to subscribe and